Welcome to This Must Be the Place. On today's episode, we are going to have a little neighborhood watch, talk about Highland neighborhood in St. Paul. We're going to talk about the seasonality of Minnesota real estate. We're going to talk to our special guest, William Schultz of Keller Williams. He's going to talk to us a little bit about investment properties and what he does. Got a little boom times action. And anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
This must be the place. Yeah, this must be the place. Ain't no time to waste. Ain't no time to waste. So whether you in Minneapolis or St. Paul, Bloomington to Maple Grove, from the east side to the west side, down south to way up north, let me hear you say, this must be the place. Yeah, this must be the place. This must be the place. Ain't no time to waste. Ain't no time to waste.
Hello and welcome to This Must Be the Place,
Every time.
the only Twin Cities real estate and real estate adjacent podcast where one of the two hosts thinks earnest money is a name Elon Musk uses to check into hotels.
That's
Pretty good, right?
that's a good one.
I was in bed last night trying to fall asleep, and I was trying to think of a good one for that.
Except it'd be earnest money.
Well, right. It's the syllabic
I love it.
emphasis,
I love
but we want to make sure, earnest money is the name he uses to check into hotels.
That's a good one. Oh man. So today, let's dive in, man.
Let's dive in.
What are we getting into today?
All right. Casey and I thought today we would talk briefly about what the seasons do to the real estate market here in the Twin Cities. Obviously, they do something, or do they? We'll find out. You like that? But obviously, the real estate market in San Diego or Phoenix or Miami.
Got a buddy down there who's like, it's going to be your busy season. I'm like, no, we gotta smack it up, flip it, rub it down.
Yes, it's so much different in terms of the Econ 101 of it all, the supply and demand of it all. And we just wanted to kind of throw out some data points that we came up with, didn't come up with, they're facts.
Yeah.
Regarding the seasonality of real estate.
Some data that we made up.
Just some data we made up. We didn't spend too much time on it. And as well as non-data points related to seasonality in terms of real estate around here in the Twin Cities and frankly the upper Midwest. What we're seeing...
It kind of confirmed what your suspicions.
It kind of confirmed my suspicions, thankfully, was that...
It wasn't counter to what you were originally...
No, definitely not.
Good.
Is that homes are... When you look at homes in the whole Twin Cities region, the metro area, with price range of $400,000 to $700,000, single-family homes that are previously owned. It is looking like, for the most part, when we are looking at the number of new listings, we are looking at those peaking in May or June, and the nadir of that is typically over the past 3 years in December. So the median number of new listings to hit the market is, between 1,500 and 1,900 in June, and it's about less than 300 in December.
And interestingly, so what tends to happen when you look at the data is you get your least number of listings in December, right? And then you get your lowest prices in February, which makes sense, right? Because typically if a house is listed in December and the median time on the market, I believe, is somewhere around 39 days at that point in the Twin Cities
time of year,
versus June, right? It's around 12, 13 days.
Yep.
So it's put on in December, it sells in January, and it closes in February. That data in February is likely going to be the lowest prices of the year, and that's what we see year over year. It looks like a roller coaster where the highest prices are going to be typically in July, June, August. The summer months.
Yeah, generally people consider that to be the time of year, and obviously not everybody has kids, but generally buyers want to close on a home before the school year starts, and generally sellers don't want to sell until the school year's over.
June, July, August.
Yes.
So I was looking at the sort of the reverse of that, where the inventory might be highest in May, June, right? But the prices are going to be sort of the highest at their apex a month or two after that. Because again, typical closings are going to take
6 weeks, whatever.
45, 60 days, something like that.
Yes, sir.
Which is in line with exactly what you would think it would be in Minnesota, right? It's, I mean, this is as obvious as it gets, right? But like, you go to any lake in the Twin Cities in June, July, and August, you're going to see a lot more people than in December and February, right?
Yeah, significantly.
You go to
significantly.
Any social gathering, it likes that. Like, we hibernate. And,
we do.
And that does affect the housing market as well.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it for yourself or anybody listening. Like, from November to February, how often do you see your neighbors?
So I was going to say, you got to make a point to see your neighbors.
Yeah. Like,
you all come out in March, April, May, and you're like, hey, I feel like I
and then you see them
forever.
every day, and you talk a lot more anyway.
Yep.
So it's kind of the same thing with real estate, where if you, I'm more of a percentage person than a number person. It's looking like homes, the sale price of homes are about 3, 4, 5, 6% higher.
Yes.
In those summer months than they are in the coldest of the cold winter months. So what does that tell us? I mean, it's telling us, if you're a first-time home buyer, if cost is the most important thing to you, you're going to want to go shopping for a house in November, December.
I would say it even fluctuates more than that. When I look at it, I see $370 to $420, $425.
Oh yeah.
That's a $50,000 swing. That's a 10%.
That's for all price ranges.
That's for all price ranges.
And I'm looking at that 410 to 700 single family. It's a little less than that, but it depends what you're looking at, right? You're going to save a lot more money.
The neighborhoods you're in and everything else. So, yeah, to what you just said, if you have the option, right? If you are a first-time buyer and you can be choosy about when you buy, right? God, if you see something great in January, you're going to get a killer deal as compared to that same house in August, right?
Correct.
And if you are selling and you are moving out of state, or you have other arrangements and don't immediately need to buy, you'd be foolish not to sell your house in May, something like that.
Correct.
But it rarely works like that, right? People always ask, when's the best time to buy a house? And everybody's like, when you need to. Or when's the best time to sell your house? Now's the best time to sell your house. Because if you're in the market, you're in the market, right? So if Andrew is selling me a house for $400,000 in January, I may save some money on that. But if I have to go buy a house in January as well, I'm gonna spend less as well. Right?
Yeah.
So it comes out in the wash.
It comes out in the wash. Yeah. If you're selling and buying, right. Casey's right. It's not going to matter. It's two sides of the same coin or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like we said, if you're a first-time home buyer, what this is telling us, if you can make it work, and if you can pay the tax of having to move in February, 5-degree weather,
you got some good friends who like.
You got some good friends. Like, it seems like you're going to save yourself potentially a lot of money.
And that's a big deal.
By shopping now, starting to kick tires now. And that's a big deal for sure. That can save you a couple $100 a month.
Yeah, and plus, so we talked a lot last week about how crazy the pandemic market was, to things going, same day that they were listed, to multiple offers for way above asking, right? Mm-hmm. If you're able to buy in the winter in this market, you have more time. You can take your time.
Yes.
You can kick some tires. Maybe you can take 2 or 3 looks at a house and really sort of understand what you're getting into, rather than feeling rushed like, oh, we have to make an offer on this and we haven't even really taken a
100%.
Second look, and we came with our 4-year-old kid, so we were half paying attention to him to make sure he was cool, and half looking at the house. So there are some positives to the way the market works in Minnesota for buyers. And conversely, the sellers in May, June,
Yep.
the spring market.
Yep. Another seasonal kind of quirk that I'm coming across right now. I've got a couple of listings that are going to be hitting the market. We don't know exactly when. The sellers don't know exactly when. We're trying to figure out timing. But if you are planning on selling your house at any point, when the grass isn't green and there's not leaves on the trees, talk to your realtor about getting, Casey or myself is who you're going to be
Talk
talking
to us.
Yeah, talk to us. They will have some good advice, especially when it comes to, hey, let's get exterior photos of the home done now while the grass is relatively green and there's leaves on the trees and you can see the backyard and you can envision yourself playing catch with your kids in the backyard and what the colors all look like.
And that's not a huge deal, right? Like the big deal is...
No, that's not a big deal at all.
The big deal is take the photos inside, requires cleaning and staging and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Exterior photos, you got a decent camera, you got an iPhone nowadays. I mean, if you don't have a realtor even, you can take some good pictures so at least you can... So what I've seen is at least you can show how the property looks in the summer.
Right.
Even if the majority of pictures are taken professionally in the winter and you're not ready to cross that threshold yet, have a couple ready to go that show how beautiful your garden is.
Yeah.
Or how green the grass is.
Yes.
Or how lovely the trees look in October or September, right?
Because you might want to list in March.
Yep.
We know what March is like in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
It's unpredictable.
Gray and
you
brown.
don't know. It could be gray and brown and cold and snowy and icy and it's...
As Prince famously said.
Sometimes it snows in
April.
Yes,
there
that's
it is.
right. That's right. So yeah, and it's kind of a nominal cost associated with getting the exterior ready for photos as compared with the inside because curb appeal is hugely important in real estate. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you eat with your eyes before you eat with your mouth, I guess is the way to say it. But it's true. So curb appeal matters, but curb appeal can be cheap, right? Like some new fresh mulch, some, refresh some things here and there, and then you're ready to take photos. If you have a good realtor like Casey or myself, we will hire a professional real estate photographer. We will pay for that.
We don't do it ourselves.
No, we don't do it ourselves.
No, you've seen the quality of this
We hire
podcast.
the experts. Yeah, right. You know the quality of this podcast. You don't want us taking photos of your exterior.
Nope. We get pros.
Yeah, so we would coordinate that and cover that. And like I said, it's the investment to get the exterior of your home ready for photos, is less than the interior because the interior you gotta maybe hire a couple of people, carpenters, maybe you've got to get things up to code, maybe you've got to clean the entire house from top, there's more expenses.
But curb appeal is important, right?
Yep.
It's hard to tell which ash tree is actually dead in St. Paul in the winter, right?
Correct.
But if you can show that your trees are
no
beautiful,
leaves,
lush,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And you can prove that to someone, maybe they're going to think twice about your property just because of how cute it looks versus the one down the street that doesn't have those pictures, right? Anything to give you that little bit of edge because it's still a competitive market, right? And your competition is the house down the street that's for sale that's similar square footage, right? So
That's
what
right.
can you do
That's
to
right.
help elevate
That's
your
right.
property status?
Right.
And just little tips, little tricks,
And
little things.
that's well put because all things being equal, if my house and my neighbor's house are roughly built the same year, they look the same square footage, decently the same updates, the house that's going to sell faster is the one that has the sexy photos of...
Tugs on the heartstrings a little bit.
Yeah.
Creates an emotional connection.
I also want to say that I use the word cute only in real estate.
Yes.
I heard you say cute.
And charming.
Yeah, and I'll say charming outside of
Like
the real
he's
estate.
such a charming young lad.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how you typically use it.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You want to do a little neighborhood watch?
Let's do neighborhood watch.
Neighborhood watch.
And now, This Must Be the Place presents Neighborhood Watch.
Today, we're going to talk about Highland.
Highland?
Go
What's
figure.
Highland?
Highland is A neighborhood.
Where is it?
It's a neighborhood in St. Paul.
Not familiar.
Do you want to? You don't know St. Paul?
Not familiar.
It's okay. You're a Minneapolis guy.
Yeah.
I will school you
All right.
on St. Paul.
Take the lead.
There is a magical place across the Ford Parkway Bridge called St. Paul. You just
Sounds magical.
it's magical. When you cross the bridge to that side, there are rainbows and puppies, and
I gotta get over there.
it's amazing. And in that land, there is a village, a neighborhood, if you will, called Highland Park. Highland Park
You
goes,
live there, is that right?
I do live there.
Ah.
Highland Park goes technically from Randolph and the river all the way to West 7th on Randolph. Some of the dividing lines are wonky. Some say 35E, but
Some
I think
say Minneapolis was set up on a grid system and makes sense, and some say St. Paul's roads don't even go north, south, east, west.
some
But I'm
would-
not going to talk about that.
Some would say that is charming.
That's true. That's true. I call
so-
it confusing, but whatever.
One man's confusing as another
no,
lady's
it's
charming.
Highland's very charming. Don't get me wrong. Anyway,
So, what I love about Highland is it is an incredibly eclectic mix of everything, right? You can buy a house in Highland for the 200,000s, or you can buy a house in Highland that is 2 million, right? I am not aware of too many other neighborhoods that have that breadth or scope of diversity, either socioeconomically or architecturally, that you go from one side, more on the McAllister-Groveland side, along Randolph, that feels much more like the Twin Cities city, South Minneapolis vibe, right? Whereas you get over by Edgecombe by the high school and it's much more suburban feeling, ramblers built in the 50s and 60s, bigger yards, off the grid system, because most of Highland, like it or not, is on the grid system. So it won't confuse you driving around. And so I love that about Highland, is that you can go from a big Ethiopian and Somali community on West 7th with all the things that brings great restaurants like Agagil, I believe I butchered that saying,
Sounds
but
like
Ross
it.
Lounge, to Vina's or On's Thai in the village, to the Nook, which Minneapolis people will cringe at this, but I do believe is the best Juicy Lucy in the entire Twin Cities metro. Matt's and the 5/8 be damned. So
we got to stop the podcast. We got to have a whole other podcast about this.
We will. We should have a burger episode where we just
the Nook,
gorge
dude,
ourselves
the Nook
on.
is so good.
It's good. It's
We
amazing.
have not talked about this beforehand, but I vote the Nook as
Don't do it.
my second favorite Juicy Lucy and
What's
my
the first?
third favorite burger.
What's the first?
What's Matt's Bar? I mean, that's
okay,
it.
all right.
Yeah, Matt's Bar is number one.
Yeah, tomatoes kind of thing.
Yeah.
I believe that that Highland's just an incredible neighborhood. So beyond living there, just some things that that I love about Highland, in case you're not familiar with it. So I'm just gonna go down the list. I don't have like two specific places like you had for Minnehaha last week. But On's Thai, my favorite Thai place in the cities. Shout out, they just
never
put an
been.
express. So it is
Where
on
is it?
University by the Axeman, which is not Highland, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not
No,
Highland.
but they put a On's Thai Express in a strip mall on Cleveland Avenue, right off of Ford Parkway, where the Punch Pizza's sort of headquartered at.
Punch isn't there anymore, though, right?
It's still there, but it's not open as a restaurant.
Okay.
So they still occupy the space and
I
have
see.
offices there.
So it's in that little strip
It is
mall.
in that little strip mall,
Oh,
and it
thank
is delicious, and it is a 5-minute drive. And if you're in South Minneapolis, right across the river, it's worth heading over.
I've always heard Ons is
It is very
shout
good.
from
So
shout out Karin. She's always said it's the best.
So On herself is the grandmother who started, I believe, the Bangkok Deli, which was on University for a very long time, like one of the best places in St. Paul. And so her granddaughter has taken it over with her husband, Joe, and they run the original place. and just opened this up, and it's the same food, and it tastes the same, and it's not like one of those things where you get a sandwich at the original and a sandwich at the new place, and they're different because of the water or something.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
it's very good. Right down from that is Vina's,
Yes,
which is an
I'm familiar
incredibly
with that.
convenient Vietnamese place that has delicious pho and sort of a wider variety of stuff. So if your kid only eats sesame chicken,
Yeah.
they can get that as well while you're eating more traditional Vietnamese flair. And then there's Sakana sushi.
That's
right
one of the
there.
places I was going to talk about.
So lots of good Asian options in the area, different regions. We have, then you go to the other side of the world, it feels like, because it feels very different than being in the village over by Crete and Durham Hall, right? We're talking Hamlin and Randolph.
Yeah.
And you have the Nook, which, as we've discussed, is either the first or second best juicy in the cities. I go first, you go second, right? And below the Nook is Randham Bowling, which is a 8-lane bowling alley that
has been there for
feels like you're
years.
teleported back to 1940.
Yeah.
No automated scoring. Got to do it by hand. Got a bar right there. You can order a juicy and fries or anything else, and it's delivered to the alley. You got to be patient because the lanes will break 5 or 6 times during your bowling. But it's all part of the charm. And it's incredible. So you have Jones in the Park off of Snelling.
Never been. I've
In
heard
the
it's
fine
stellar.
dining, it is delicious. You have Muriel, which occupied the original Lucci place, which is across
On
from
Cleveland.
Lucci and Cora. Which is by St. Kate's University.
Karen Tomlinson, she's the chef that has Muriel. I've heard it.
It's unbelievable.
Amazing.
Carboni's Pizza, which I think is the best Carboni's location in the entire cities, which is by SPA on Randolph and Davern. Got to eat it there. It's unbelievably delicious and crisp, and the house special is amazing.
Is it still like decor-wise, still like super old school?
No, they remodeled.
Oh, they did. Okay.
And it is open and beautiful, and same guys have been working there forever, and it's just it's like it's a St. Paul mainstay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then the last thing I want to point out, and I will shout out the owners of this, is Highland Popcorn, which is a relatively new place where the Lunds used to be. So Lunds and Byerly's moved into a new location on Ford. This is almost where the old Lunds used to be, right around the corner. So it's still on Ford Parkway, but in the little strip mall there. Highland Popcorn is a locally owned popcorn company owned by Seamus and Connor. And Connor is Seamus' son. Connor is mid-20s, has some special needs, autistic. And the goal of Highland Popcorn was to create a space where they can hire people with disabilities, whether physical or developmental, and teach them new skills and let them thrive within an environment that they can actually keep their job and grow.
That's awesome.
And then they donate a lot of the proceeds to organizations, because they're also a nonprofit, that help fund some stuff and services for people with disabilities.
I didn't even know that place existed.
And,
That's awesome.
they are available in 15 to 20 Lunds throughout the metro area, Highland Popcorn. And I wouldn't give it a plug if it was, I mean, I guess I would give it a plug if it was just that, but the popcorn is friggin' delicious. It's delicious.
Love popcorn.
So just all the reasons I love Highland. And then you have the green spaces, 27 holes of golf. You have the marina down off Shepherd where you can catch a boat cruise. You have the Highland Bridge and all the new stuff that's bringing to the table. You have river access, you have West 7th access, and you have everything in between. And I love the neighborhood. It's a great place to be. So shout out to Highland. That's my plug for this
Neighborhood Watch.
This neighborhood watch.
I love it too. I very briefly, I don't have as anywhere near as much to say about Highland as Casey, but I echo everything I know that he said. I fully endorse. Sakana is where my wife and daughter and I go because my daughter loves sushi. She's 12, and it's
good.
It's like
it's in an old KFC.
It's in an old KFC. It's like old, trusty, reliable. Like the service is great.
Yep.
Shout out Mary. The food, the sushi, if you know what to get, is amazing.
Sumo roll is outstanding.
Number 9 roll is what we get. Sumo roll is really good.
Yeah.
And then also the Highland Theater, man.
Oh, shout out Highland Theater.
Yeah.
We said so much talking about the Riverview.
So there was a movie starring Robert De Niro called Ronin.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember it. I believe it came out around 2000. And I want to shout out the Highland Theater because a buddy of mine we wanted to go see Ronin, but we were dumb 20-year-olds, maybe 21. One of us had to have been 21. So we each went to that Carboni's.
Okay.
We each got a large pizza.
It really looked old school back then.
Yeah, it did. We each went, or one of us went to the liquor store, and we each had a 40 of Old English.
Oh, my God.
And we took them, shout out these kids at that Highland movie theater, because, they're teenagers or whatever working there. We just walked in to go see Ronin.
Pizza and a 40?
We each had a large pizza and a 40, and they just didn't even say a word. And we went in, we were drinking our 40 and eating pizza, watching the Ronin.
Listen,
I'll never forget it.
I'm not saying that they would let you do that now.
Probably not.
But I'm not saying that they wouldn't let you do that now.
What is turning a blind eye for a teenager? That's all they did.
Yeah.
They didn't tell us that we could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
that's a funny story.
Yeah, that's my
You got
fond
some good
memory.
movie stories between Brady Bunch last week
Yeah.
and the 40s and pizzas from
I like
Carboni's.
calling it the Pulp Fiction story, but if you want to call it the Brady Bunch story, I suppose that fits a little better. But Highland Park, man, neighborhood watch.
And it literally it's right across from Minnehaha Falls, Minnehaha Park.
Yeah, right across
and
the
everything
river.
that South Minneapolis has to offer. So, if you're not caught up in what city you live in, worth checking it out if you're checking out the Howie sort of Minnehaha neighborhoods. And if you're in Highland and you want to check out those other neighborhoods, it's also worth checking out over there because it's a hop, skip, and a jump to enjoy both areas.
Amen, sir.
Yeah. All right. Today we have Will Ways with us. You prefer William or Will?
William Schultz. Schultz.
Oh, that's Will Ways.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
your
Will
artist
Ways was the
name.
music name.
Let's start this again.
Yeah.
Today we have William Schultz.
Yes.
With Keller Williams Realty, among other things, with us today. Unbelievable realtor.
Thank you.
St. Paul native, a Renaissance man. You do lots of stuff.
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
Online personality in terms of giving knowledge and sharing things.
Yeah.
And then in particular, what we wanted to speak about today is the knowledge and expertise that you bring to not only the commercial real estate world, but the investment property, multifamily home, and sort of how your average person can get involved in that or get started in that. Because that's an area where I think both Andrew and I don't do a lot of stuff. So thought it'd be an interesting discussion. So thanks for coming on today.
Man, thanks for having me. We go back a long time. We've known each other for many years, and just meeting you today.
Yeah, we go back about 17 minutes.
Right, yeah. We were both stuck in traffic on the way.
Yes,
so
we were.
We're bonded for life now.
Yep.
So, I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you because it's been a while in person.
Yeah.
I see you online every day.
Right.
So I had
and
to
it's
get you
been
on.
a while. We've never had a real estate discussion. It's always usually been music related. So this will be fun to talk some real estate.
Yeah. So I guess maybe start with a little bit about how you got in this world and where you got started, a little background information.
Sure.
And then we can transition to maybe your preferred area of the business and talk investment properties and things like that.
So I got into real estate. It was nothing that I ever intended being a part of.
I don't think any of us ever intended it.
Who does that, right? And so what happened is, as you know, I used to be in the music business. I got sick of that. I started working for a cousin of mine that owned a construction and a water and fire restoration company. Started doing that and doing sales, helped him build the business. And we went on every year we'd go on these they call them retreats or reunions.
You would film
or
some of that, or
Look,
at least leading up to it, or was
not
this,
really. And I don't
okay.
think that, but so we did. When I was at one of these seminars, it was a sales seminar, and there was this guy talking and said, "Hey, the biggest sale is the one you're the most scared of, but you just don't know it. And you never know who your next sale is. On the way back from that trip, I was sitting next to a guy on the plane. I didn't feel like talking. I was just kind of like, I don't even feel like talking. And I thought about that sales guy, right? So I ended up starting a conversation with the guy, and he ended up being the business manager for Andrew Zimmerman, the food guy.
Oh,
the guy
yeah,
here
yeah,
in
yeah.
Minnesota. Yep.
Bizarre Foods.
Yeah,
guy,
yeah. So, and he said, yeah, we were coming from Texas. He came from Mexico, had a layover in Texas, was coming to St. Paul, and he said,
Okay.
yeah, I'm just coming to St. Paul to check on some of my properties. And in that moment, I was like, every single person I ever talked to that was wealthy or had money owned real estate. In that moment, I was like, I need to get into real estate. I need to buy some real estate. Now, nothing happened for many, many years, but I ended up buying a book it was How to Build a Real Estate Empire. And I read that book, and about 2 years later, I think I acquired my first property at that time. And I actually was an investor before I became a realtor.
Yeah.
So I bought a duplex. I renovated that one, sat on it for a year, bought another duplex. And then actually, I'm sorry, let me back up. Before that, my first investment was actually I'm a passive investor into a JV, which we call a joint venture apartment. So that's kind of how I got my start. I've been rolling ever since. That was pre-pandemic, so maybe 2020, 2019. And then I got my real estate license. It'll be 2 years next month.
Okay.
Yep.
And so it's kind of was it a natural progression of like, well, I really enjoy the process of looking at the numbers and crunching the numbers for what I want to do for my personal investments, and why not step into this world that I already enjoy and help other people with this process? Was it more for yourself to get started? Like, what was?
Yeah, that's a great question. What it was for me is I had a good friend of mine that was my realtor that helped me on the duplexes that I bought. Unfortunately, that person didn't have a lot of knowledge in real estate investing. And so I was doing all the underwriting, I was finding the deals, and I was giving this person a pretty nice commission, or they earned, they got a commission from the seller side. And I just thought to myself, I might as well have that commission come to me if I'm going to buy my own properties.
If you're doing the work.
If I'm
Makes
doing the work,
sense.
'cause
Yeah.
it's going to discount, it gives me a little bit of a discount. So at that point in time, I was like, I'm going to get my license. I got my license, and without ever trying to become a realtor, I just was going to be for myself.
Okay.
I had a friend. I posted on social media, hey, I got my license. Had a friend reach out to me. She said, hey, and like the day I posted, she reached out to me. She was like, hey, I'm trying to buy a multifamily property.
3 weeks later, close.
I wish
Will's
that was
in
the case.
business.
It was one of the most complicated deals you'll probably come across. Of
course. Your first
my
deal?
first deal.
Of course.
But we did get it closed, and it was probably like 5 months later, but we got it closed. And it was like maybe somebody doing their first hit of drugs, where I was hooked.
Yeah.
At that point in time, I'm like, this is it. This is all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I owned a marketing business at the time. I was working that full time. And here we are almost 2 years later, and I've divested from that business to where I've like sold my equipment. I've scaled back my clients, and I'm like 100% in real estate now. Yep.
So do you actively, I guess at this point, people are kind of seeking you out for your knowledge in that world, right? Like,
yeah, I would say to some degree. I think it's a little bit of both, because the knowledge I get, I'm seeking others that are much more experienced and much more knowledgeable than I am, to make myself a better realtor and a better investor. And then in return, I share that with other people that have sought me out, that are looking to make their first investment, or kind of understand how investing works, or just understand how real estate works. So it's kind of a pay it forward kind of situation.
Sure. What do you personally look for? Like, if you're going out to say, I'm looking for a client, or I'm looking for myself, and I'm looking for a duplex or a multifamily fourplex or something, like what do you look for? Either and you can get as deep as you want in terms of numbers, in terms of cap rate, in terms of return on investment. It's like, what do you look for that makes a good property for someone who's just sort of getting into this?
Yeah, like
world?
how do you determine ROI, right?
Sure. I think I think we gotta break it down in a couple of different categories, right? So first of all, we gotta. What will dictate a lot of things is what is this person approved for. So let's go with the duplex right now, because I think that's the lower hanging fruit. Most people are buying duplexes, not buying apartments.
Maybe to live in one. And
Correct. Yeah.
And the mechanics of buying a 5-plex or larger are so much
different, right?
Yeah,
so for now,
duplex.
we can get to that second, but we can start with the
That's a
duplex,
great place
right?
to start. Yeah.
So let's say somebody's approved for, we'll call it 300,000, because that seems like a good, easy number. And they come to me and they say, hey, I'm approved for 300,000, and I want to buy my first duplex. My first thing I'm going to ask, are you going to live in one side? Are you going to rent the other side out? Okay. So let's say they're like, nope, we just want to rent the whole thing out. Then we're going to talk about what kind of loan do you have? Well, we have a FHA loan. Okay, well, look, the FHA loan requires you to live in one side, but only for 1 year. So we're going to go with that strategy in this scenario. So what am I looking for? I'm trying to help this person find something that we could add some value down the road. So my first duplex I bought, the upstairs unit was a 4-bedroom unit. The downstairs was a 1-bedroom unit, okay? And what I did is,
it's an odd layout.
it's an odd layout, right?
Yeah.
So the upstairs unit was massive though, and it had a sunroom, okay?
Okay.
All I needed to do to add another bedroom was to add a door and a closet.
So you go 5 up and 1 down now?
No, not quite, because then downstairs, there was another sunroom.
Okay.
All I had to do was add a window and a door, and I think that total investment was maybe like $7,500, maybe $8,000.
Sure.
But that increased the value of the property instantly, because now you're comping a 7-bedroom, 2-bath versus a 5-bedroom, 2-bath.
Sure.
So the value goes up. So I'll look for those kind of things. I'll look for things that will say, it doesn't need a lot of work and it's going to be turnkey, and you don't have a lot of extra money to spend to add a door and a window. So let's find you something that day one you can come in here and just start making a little bit of money.
Sure.
I would say the other thing is we need to talk strategy. There's because interest rates are high, because the cost of operating expenses, again, your water, your trash, your electricity, your property taxes, because that costs more and the cost of and interest rates are high, there's not a lot of margin anymore on these places.
Yeah.
So we have to sit down and I have to talk strategy. And one of the things I let people know is you've been watching Grant Cardone videos and he's been telling you about cash flow for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So you think you're about to buy a duplex and you're going to cash flow. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
If anything, let's look for something that's going to make $300 a month at best.
That's what a lot of people, I think they're going to get into a rental property, and it's going to pay not only the rental property's mortgage, but it's going to pay half of their mortgage.
Doesn't happen anymore because of where we're at. But what I tell people in those scenarios is, however, when you have people paying down your mortgage, they're increasing the equity.
Sure.
The value of the property is going up. So
you make sure people understand it's a long-term
It's
play.
a long-term thing. And then, hey, 3 years from now, you can take the 30 or 40 grand of equity that you've built up, you refinance that, and you take that and use that as a down payment on another property. And you slowly build your wealth that way. Cash flow is important, but when you're first starting out, I think just getting in a property, understanding the mechanics of how things work, and just slowing down a little bit and just getting in the investment and purely thinking about having tenants pay your mortgage, pay down that debt as the equity increases, the value increases simultaneously, and also the tax benefits, because you can write a lot of stuff off, the property appreciates. So having that conversation, I think, is probably the most important, and just helping them understand the strategy.
Do you help them understand the numbers from like what they're looking for in terms of the cap rate or what their ROI is going to be? And whether or not they should be looking at property management companies or whether they're going to do it themselves? And do you prefer one way to the other, or is it all tailor-made?
I will tell you that each client's different. Most people that I've worked with haven't wanted to get too deep in the numbers. I think they're kind of like, hey, that's why I hired you.
Oh.
I want you to tell me.
I would have thought it'd be the opposite from an investor perspective.
Me too, but I think because we're all into real estate, we're probably nerdy like that. That probably more interests us than your general person. They just want to own a property, like say I'm an investor, right? And then you figure the numbers out as they get into year 1, year 2, year 3. I will typically send, I'll underwrite, I'll send the sheet out and explain, hey, I don't think this one works, here's why. Basically, again, it goes back to the strategy of what's more important to you. I have some people that I've worked with that cash flow was important, and so we underwrote it where there was one time we had a single family home and a duplex in the Highland area.
Break down underwriting for
underwriting.
the people that are watching that are brand new to this.
Sure.
That are like, I love the idea of it. I have no idea what cap rate is. I have no idea what underwriting is. I think ROI means return on investment and not like real offer indicator or something else. Like break that down a little bit.
We'll keep it. Underwriting is basically just taking the property and determining the expenses versus the income, and you come up with something called your net operating income, which is, this called NOI, right? Net operating income is like all the money this property makes, whether it's the tenants paying rent, coin laundry, maybe parking, maybe have some storage. You're taking all that income, right? And then you're subtracting it from the expenses.
Sure.
So they'll just say what the basic expenses are. Insurance, water and trash. Those are the three things, and property taxes. Those four things the tenant or the owner's always going to pay for.
Not the mortgage?
Well, that's what I'm going to get to.
Okay.
So you have those four things. Now, depending on the way out, how the electric is metered, if it's metered separately, if it's just one furnace, that will determine typically if the landlord's going to be paying those as well, right? So you take those expenses, you take that NOI, and then from there you add the mortgage. Okay, and that gives you what your cash flow is.
Gotcha.
All right, and then what we call, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, so I'm not going to go there, but that's if
like
you're
a
buying
big
a duplex.
picture.
Yeah, to keep it simple, you're taking your income, subtracting it by your expenses, and then how much is left to pay the mortgage, and then after you pay the mortgage, what's left over is your cash flow.
Okay.
Interesting. I about a year and a half ago, I had a client call me up, shout out Morgan. She was like, I want to buy a duplex and I want to live in half of it. And we looked for a few months. We finally found one in South Minneapolis. And she had, I want to ask you if this is becoming more and more common, she wanted to live in half of it and use it as an investment, but also a place to live, obviously. And then the other half, the side-by-side that we ended up buying, she used a third-party company called Furnished Finders.
Yep.
Where, for her purposes, she was going to furnish it using, the eye she had for that kind of thing to properly furnish a property, a one bed, one bath. And then she was using it as like, this market has a lot of traveling nurses that'll come in for
executive rental type.
Right.
Midterm rentals.
Like 6 months at a time, 3 months at a time, something like that, where they're coming into something that's already furnished. They're not spending their quote unquote own money. So their budgets are high. It's a stipend, right? So I thought it was a really savvy move by her. So I got a kind of crash course on that. Fortunately, I had some people at our office that helped me and helped Morgan out. But like you said, like, okay, there's things to consider. Like, are there two furnaces? Are there two water meters? Are there two washers, two dryers, two water heaters? Yeah, whatever. Unfortunately, this place had all those things, which the more I find is more beneficial for that kind of living. But are you seeing any like that, third-party apps and things like that with as a possibility for investment, and especially in like duplexes?
Yeah, so I have a buddy of mine who actually told me about this stuff. He had a duplex and he was renting it out, market tenants, and unfortunately, in one of his duplexes, he had a murder. Ooh. And then like months after that, somebody shot a gun and accidentally shot somebody else. So he's like, all right, I'm switching up my philosophy, right? So he was a pharmacist, right? And so he.
What kind of pharmacist we talking about?
A legit pharmacist.
We got murderers.
Not a street pharmacist. Like
legitimate.
This guy is like very square guy, lives out in the suburbs.
Name is Walter White.
Yeah. Anyway, he ended up doing these midterm rentals because he had the connections to these nurses, because he's a pharmacist in one of these hospitals. I think it was Abbott or whatever, the ones over in Chicago.
Yeah.
So
Abbott.
what he found is, to kind of go to what you're talking about, if you get a rental property that's in close proximity to hospital or medical clinics. They were really popular for traveling nurses, and he was able to, if one of his units he was getting $1,200 a month for on the market, he was actually getting like $19,000 to $2,000 a month.
Same exact thing I'm talking about.
Thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So only thing I would say about caution about that is, that can become a saturated market. We've seen that with Airbnb, where Airbnb vacancies are sky high right now. They're not renting at the same rate they were because everybody got into it.
Sure.
Also, post-pandemic, I'll tell you that traveling nurses
Yes.
we've peaked in terms of what we see for traveling nurses and the money that places are throwing at traveling nurses to come. And that would worry me a little bit, as if that was my business model and that was my only way to get something, that would worry me a little bit, what that would look like in 5 years.
Sure.
But if it's a nice duplex at that point, hopefully you just flip that into a regular rental.
On it. I think the key
Right,
is,
don't get dependent on it.
Yeah.
But take the little bit that you're making and reinvest it into something else, right? One thing I heard on a podcast years ago about real estate investing, a guy said when you start hearing the cashier at the Walmart say they're about to get into real estate investing or like get into Airbnbs.
That's when you get out.
That's when you get out.
Yeah.
Run the other way when everybody's going. So you really want to try to run to things that not everybody's in. Now, in our market,
my mom
again,
calls me up and says, I read something on the
about
front cover of the
cryptos,
USA Today about
get
crypto.
Get out.
Oh boy.
So that's the thing. Like, but that would be the strategy. Get back to wrap it up is like, you finding things that have extra rooms, finding things that have one, a separate meter for each unit's important. Just kind of look at it. Does this have a finished basement where I could add an egress window in and then make it another room? Those are the kind of things we like to look for.
Something I'll point out, and you speak to this, is like, you don't have to have a ton of money to get started in this world, right? There are properties, there are great properties at every price point.
Yes.
Even in a market like the Twin Cities, where prices are elevated from where they were 5-10 years ago, like, there are great properties, and there are really great programs, I think, with a bunch of different lenders to help people get started with minimal money down. You don't have to walk into this thing with a lot of money.
I helped a young girl, I think she's 23, 24. She bought a property with, so it was about a little under $200,000 duplex on the east side. It was a little bit of a fixer-upper. She got a conventional loan. I think it was at like 5%, but she had like $16,000 in down payment assistance. And I think at closing, she came out of about maybe $3,000, $3,500 or something like that, to get a property that's gonna pay itself back, build generational wealth. And
Imagine being 24 and understanding that with $3,000, you can go start your business.
We know now,
empire.
kind of thing, right? And William's right. Like, talk to lenders. Talk to the people at the county. Go on city websites, county websites. Yeah. There's money out there,
and we will
for you.
Yeah.
I think we'll throw your info up on the pod, but if you want to give people who are listening your info, if they want to contact you to talk about some of that real estate stuff, or if you have other resources, like you were talking, Andrew, just about the county or lenders, if there's specific resources you want to let people in on.
I think the main thing is to just reach out to either myself or even you guys for a lender. I mean, I think the number one thing, and you've probably seen me post this, is like, I post this quite a bit. The number one thing you need in real estate, whether you're buying a house, whether you're buying a condo, whether you're buying a freaking warehouse or a 100-unit apartment building, is you need money. And we need to find out your budget first so we can make sure that your eyes aren't bigger than your stomach and we're just looking at things else. So I think, yes, you can reach out to me, at William Schultz Real Estate. Just find me on any of the social media platforms. These guys can hook you up with lenders. But the number one thing is you need to get hooked up with the lender, like number one. Whether it's at a bank, whether it's what we call a hard money lender, that's somebody that'll loan you their own money, whether it's borrowing money from your mom or dad, you need to have money. Yep. And that's just...
And people like us, deal with lenders all the time and refer good lenders out all the time. So...
Yep. And
we know lenders you can trust and that potentially will offer different kinds of programs that'll be beneficial to you.
Because along that lines, I think it's important for people to understand is the same. So let's back up. When we talk about getting an investment property, you can use the same kind of loan for an investment property of 4 units or less that you use to the same kind of loan that you can get a house with, right? So if you got a fourplex, triplex, duplex, single family home, trailer park, one trailer, a single family home, a condo, you can use the same kind of loan, which it can be an FHA loan, a VA loan, or a conventional loan, right? To get that property. So anybody out there can get into real estate for relatively cheap. And when we say cheap, let's call it 3.5% down, right? For 3.5% down plus 3% in closing costs, right? So let's say that $300,000 duplex we were talking about.
10
what's
grand.
that? Yeah. Well, it's $9 grand,
Plus
grand on closing costs,
closing
right?
costs,
So
too,
yeah, but now we roll out that down payment assistance program. So now I'm only paying, if it's 19 grand to close this thing, and I have $16,500 of down payment assistance, I got like $2,500, $3,500 I have to bring to the table to get a duplex.
And these programs exist, like you said, for fourplexes on down, right?
Yep.
The first gen homeowner program works for that, right? Like all these different programs work for that. Correct. And the only way people out, listening to this podcast will know whether they qualify for some of these things. And it's a great point. Like, really, with anything, what we do is speak to a lender. Yeah. And if you don't have a lender that you trust,
call a realtor.
Hit us up on the pod. This must be the place. pod@gmail.com. We're happy to do so. And I have to say this, it should go without saying, but it doesn't in our industry. There's another podcast that I listen to that is sponsored by a mortgage, like a concierge service. Sure. And the host always talks about, don't listen to your realtor because they'll hook you up with a lender and they're getting kickbacks and everything else. Like, it's not how it works.
I've never gotten a kickback.
It's super illegal. It's not how it works. We hook you up with people that we trust because we want them to get the job done for you, right? Correct. I'm not going to hook you up with somebody that's going to screw around and leave you hanging because that reflects poorly on me and what we're trying to get done.
Let me ask you guys a question real quick. Because I think this is important that your listeners and everybody out there hears this. What's the most important thing for you guys when working with a mortgage person? What's the most important thing to you?
Trust. Ensuring that the deal closes on time. Communication, accountability. All those things. That's what we look for.
And it's not kickbacks. Like nobody gives. Realtors only care that the customer is going to get taken care of and not get frustrated at you for referring them to this person. Yes. So I would say communication is like huge. Yeah. Because I've worked with some people long time. Communication started tailing off. Yeah. I immediately started working with somebody else because their communication is better. Yep. Maybe they're not as knowledgeable, but I can live with that if I know that anytime my client has a question, it gets responded to because we don't. It's
going to help them feel at ease, which is a lot of this process for new
home buyers.
This is a very unsettling process with a lot of paperwork and a lot of numbers and a lot of what does this mean? Like having somebody that will answer those questions and help you feel at ease with the process. And one of the first things Andrew told me when I got into real estate, he was like, do not be afraid to say, I don't know, but I will find out. Sure. Right? Yep. And so even having somebody who's willing to be honest to say, give me a second, I will find out for you is important.
Well, no, the worst thing I think that we deal with as realtors when it comes to a mortgage thing is when your client calls you and says, hey, so-and-so's not getting back to me. Yeah.
Hate that.
It's like, and you're like, and that's all we want. All we want is somebody, so you guys call your realtor and they will put you in contact with a mortgage person that
that will be communicative and accountable, get the deal done on time, somebody you can trust, somebody that after the ink is dried on the last signature, the buyer is like, I'm so glad I used that lender.
Absolutely. Yep.
Do you know what our phone number is?
I can find out.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Google it.
We have a podcast, like a Google Voice number that we set up for this podcast. Okay. So you want to leave voicemails? Leave voicemails. We want feedback.
We also have a phone number that
That's a good
Hell
idea.
if we can remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's 612-234-1889. Tell me if I'm right.
612-234-1889.
There it is.
There we go.
That's exactly
There it is.
right. So if you have any questions, comments,
Yeah,
anything at all for William or Casey or myself,
Yeah.
call that number or go to thismustbetheplacepod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Ask a question. We will answer it.
Well, thank you for coming by, man.
Thanks for having me,
Really
man.
appreciate it, dude.
Good to see you.
Great
again.
to see you.
Good
Thanks,
to meet
William.
You.
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah.
All right, be well.
Thank you.
Welcome to Boom Times, a segment called Boom Times, Boom Times.
Okay, so
We
boom
gotta be
times.
quick today.
We gotta be quick today because we've had a couple long segments. So, boom times, BMTMS, books, movies, TV, music, sports, boom times. Just a little segment where Casey and I are, although we are old men, we still have our fingers on the pulse a little bit of what's going on, and we just kind of want to chop it up a little bit and talk about some things we've been doing this last week, what we've been noticing, and we
Yep.
obviously have to talk Minnesota Lynx first.
They got jobbed.
They got jobbed.
Jobbed.
So since we last recorded, they've played a couple games. They won one of them.
They won both of them.
They won both of them, actually. I was telling my son this.
Alternate facts.
I am not.
World champions.
I am not one to
Blame the
criticize refs. I don't do it.
Yep.
They have a hard job. I am not a conspiratorial person.
Dude,
I
this
don't
was-
think anything's rigged. This was off the charts.
Off
Some
the
of the
charts.
worst officiating
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like,
How do you have replay and continue to get it wrong?
Yeah,
when
man.
Any Joe on the internet can break it down and be like, well, she traveled here, no
Yeah.
contact here, every camera. I mean, shout out to Lynx either way.
for sure.
Amazing season.
Amazing. I can't wait until next year.
Yeah, right?
Same
But
team's coming back.
jobbed. We should have our fifth.
We should have the fifth. And did you see the Twitter photos that Nafisa Collier was putting out? It
Good
was
for her.
great. Good
Shout
for
out
her.
Nafisa. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Because
You were getting assaulted in the lane.
all serious.
Yeah, and you weren't getting calls, and you took the high road, the respectful road,
Yeah.
and I am impressed by you for that.
Yeah.
But you got hosed.
Yeah.
The Lynx got hosed.
Yeah.
That's our championship.
Yes. Agreed.
And we'll get them next time.
Yeah. I got one. I'm only going to go one this week.
Okay.
But it was definitely great. I went to the Turf Club.
You
for
did?
the first time in a very long time,
Love the Turf Club. It's one of my favorite spots.
and saw a group called KokoRoko. And if you're not familiar with KokoRoko, they are a six or seven piece band with two badass chicks from London. They're all from London. And the two women who sort of front the group play the trumpet and the trombone. And they're like jazz, fusion, Afro, soul, sort of Fela Kuti
Love
meets...
it. But without the 32 wives.
Yes, but meets like London soul, and they were on their world tour, and it was
That sounds
it was an
right
amazing
up my alley,
It was
man.
an amazing show to see. Shout out my father-in-law for buying tickets, because I don't think I would have known about them, and my father-in-law and my wife. And the Turf Club is a great place to go.
Did you go downstairs?
I did go to the
Clown
Clown
Lounge?
Lounge downstairs. Love the Clown
Yeah,
Lounge.
love it.
Just throwing it out there. On's Thai, the original.
Yeah.
2 doors down.
Yep.
So go for some Thai food, see a show at the Turf, visit the Clown Lounge.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great night. And KokoRoko is coming out with a new album.
It's a
new
great
EP.
venue too. It's intimate. Like
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
right there. Like you're
First Ave owned, right? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
high quality
Yeah.
booking,
Yep.
right? And if you're into the band KoKoRoko, KokoRoko, and it was an awesome
I will
show.
for sure
Highly
check them out.
recommended. Yep.
I'm bummed I missed it.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. I just wanted, going back to Boom Times from episode 1, you shouted out a show you were watching, the Kristen Bell show. I don't remember the name of it. My wife started watching
This
it.
must be the place. That's our show.
That's our show.
Nobody wants this.
Yes, my wife started watching it, and Sarah, and she's obsessed with it.
Yeah,
So
good.
I have not. We have different TV watching schedules because my
Yes.
wife goes to bed at 8 o'clock every
Yeah.
night. So,
My kids are rewatching The Good Place. Also, Kristen Bell.
yes, that's a good show. That's a good
Also
show.
Funny show. Yeah.
So, Boom Times, I got two very briefly. Number one, The Penguin
I've heard good things.
on Max I'm blown away. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not I know it's not Marvel, but I'm not like a superhero Marvel person, but I've always loved Batman. Anyway, it's amazing. I'm only like 2 episodes in, and
awesome.
it's the way it's shot, the acting is stellar. So, The Penguin, if you like the Dark Knight or any of the previous iterations of Batman without not like the campy Arnold Schwarzenegger Batman, but any of like the moody, well shot Batman, I mean, you'll love it. It's great.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I've heard very good things about Colin Farrell's performance.
Yeah, and the female lead, Kristen Milotti or whatever her name is, she's amazing.
Well, thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks as always.
For this week's episode of This Must Be the Place. He is Andrew Shields. I'm Casey Golden.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all, you can go on to internet.com and check out thismustbetheplacepod@gmail.com, or you can call us at
612-234-1889. Leave a message, leave a comment, or if you need to buy something or sell something, pick our brains, interview us. Like we're realtors. This is what we do. We enjoy doing it. We love doing it. We are here to help. And there are realtors in the world who, believe it or not, are not here to help. Maybe they're just trying to close a deal and not do what's right for their clients in terms of what is best for their clients.
100%.
We are not those people.
And use a realtor with a podcast.
Yeah, only podcast realtors allowed. Until next time, peace.
See you next Tuesday. What?